Hi, everybody, welcome back. I'm Strategy Professor, and today we're going to be doing a Miss Fortune guide. So, special thanks to Nagarake for the generous donation. I really appreciate it. If you'd like to sponsor a guide yourself, just email me at thestrategyprofessor@gmail.com. Let me know what you have in mind. Just $30. I'll do a guide on any champion of your choice or any topic of your choice. So, if you want to know about a specific macro situation, micro situation, something about game theory, I'm happy to chip in, do my research, and make a quality guide for you. So just email me at thestrategyprofessor@gmail.com if you're interested in that. If you are a member of the channel, then I'll give you a $5 discount. So if you join either via YouTube, via a Twitch sub, or via PayPal, then I will give you $5 off there. And it's just $5 to be a member. So it's basically a free membership if you want to get a guide anyways for a month. So just email me if you're interested in that. Okay, and there will be a playlist as well attached to this, so if you want to see more champion guides, then you can flip through and find those. And if you want to find more topical guides like Best One Trick Champion, does luck exist in League, how can you overcome it, what is dodging, how does that work, and just dozens and dozens of other guides, be sure to check all that out on the main channel. We also stream every night starting around 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube. Very chill, wonderful, friendly community. We'd love to have you. I try to be as conversational as possible while I'm playing so I can answer any questions that you have, and I try to explain the decisions that I'm making as well as we go through. Okay, so let me preface this by saying I am not an ADC main. I am a Diamond Support main, but I do play with Miss Fortunes a lot, and I do think about the game quite a bit, so hopefully I'll have some good stuff to chip in for you here. All right, so let's first start talking about her abilities a little bit and kind of her position in the meta as well. So Miss Fortune has become very popular right now. Both she's almost always pretty good in solo queue because she's fairly easy to play, but she's also been very popular in pro. Now this is the off season. This is 924B as of this recording, so we have not seen like a proper main season with Miss Fortune yet. But there is the Kespa Cup going on, which is the Korean like winter tournament, and she's the most picked ADC, and she has quite a high win rate. I mean, 66%. Now it is early in the tournament. It's kind of the first round, and these are sort of the weaker teams. I think the stronger teams get a bye in this tournament. So like SKT and stuff like that haven't played yet. So we'll see as the tournament unfolds. But overall, I think I had her on here. You see that she's the most picked ADC with quite a high win rate. Now Varus is the second most picked, and he has an even higher win rate. But it's not even close after that. It's pretty much all Miss Fortune, all Varus. And I really did not see that coming out of it. I mean, I know she's strong in solo queue, but it's been a while since she's been played a lot in pro. And she's also really good in solo queue as well. She has almost a 54% win rate. So she's the highest mainstream ADC by a large margin. Yeah, you got the Swain and the Cassiopeia, but those are less than 1% played. She almost has 11% played total, and she still is rocking 53.5%. It's almost a full percent over second place at Chen. So she's really, really strong right now. And so what's up with the Miss Fortune? Why is this going on? Let's first talk about her abilities, and then I'll talk about how these abilities fit into the style of game that's going on right now, and where she fits, and like which types of team comp she's good with, and what she counters on the enemy team. So there haven't been that many like changes to her, although there was one significant one near the end of the season. On patch 9.18, they did increase her slow to 40% with 1 point, which is a huge deal. We'll talk about that more here in just a little bit. But it used to only be a 28% slow at level 1, and this is what you max last. So on ADC, Miss Fortune at least. So the 40% is a very big deal as far as the slow goes. But that's really the only change that's happened to her in the last little bit, other than other things that have shifted in the meta, other champions that have been nerfed and buffed, and just the style of game that's going on right now has really been the main reason, excuse me, that she's risen to prominence. Okay, so her base stats are pretty good overall. She has okay health, 541, pretty standard. Base movement speed is slow, but she does have an ability strut, which makes her move much, much faster. Kind of 550, normal attack range, normal armor, so pretty standard damages across the board there. Now, Love Tap, Miss Fortune's next basic attack is her passive. Against an enemy unit that includes turrets, that was not the target of her previous attack, will deal an extra 50 to 100% total AD as bonus physical damage, halved versus minions. Now, this is really important to note that this is the attack itself does that damage. This is not on hit, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. But as far as I can tell, it is on hit, or it is not on hit. It is on attack, which means it says right here, Runan's Hurricane Bolts do not apply to this. So why is that important? That means that damage can crit. Okay, I believe it doesn't say that it can't. It says it empowers normal auto attack damage. It's not bonus damage. It says the next attack will deal this damage. So I believe that it can crit, which is going to be a huge part of why the crit works in a second. So basically, if you switch targets, then you're going to be doing extra damage. Even if it doesn't crit, it's a lot of damage. But I'm pretty sure it does crit because it's on the actual attack itself. It's an empowered attack. Now, her double up here is her Q ability. First thing to note about this is it's pretty good range. It's actually further range than her normal auto attack at 650, so that can kind of sneak up on people. Sometimes it feels like it's the same as her auto, but it's actually further. And it only costs 43 mana, so it's very easy to spam in the early game and has a pretty low cooldown. So it's a really good harassment tool. So she fires a shot at the enemy that deals physical damage, which then bounces to hit another unit behind it. This shot does apply on hit effects, including Love Tap. So basically, if you Q a minion, it bounces off of the minion, then hits someone else, it will apply Love Tap to that new target. Because the first target hit is going to be the minion, and then the next target hit is going to be whoever's behind the minion, and that's going to be the Love Tap. So it will apply Love Tap to both of them. The bounce prioritizes units directly behind the enemy target. It seems like it prioritizes champions. It doesn't say that here, but I'll tell you anecdotally, it does some really weird bounces sometimes. And looks like it bounces for champions. I don't know if that's official, but it does seem to go for champions quite a bit. Double Up's bounce is affected by critical strike modifiers. So both hits can crit. If Double Up kills the primary target, the bounce is guaranteed to critically strike. Okay, so this can crit. So it applies on hits, and it also crits. Now what it does is 100% of your total AD on the attack, in addition to an extra number here, this 100. So that 100 damage right there can crit, because it says it can. Now it's different than Draven's Axes. Draven's Axes is probably the closest thing to this. Draven's Axes do bonus damage. Basically bonus on hit damage, right? And that bonus damage can't crit, but this bonus damage can critically hit. So for instance, if you have this at rank 5 or whatever, you get 60 extra damage. Let's say you have 100 AD and you crit on it, then it would do 160, 320 total damage. And if it kills the minion or whatever, if it kills the primary target, the next bounce is guaranteed to critically hit. So that's how she does so much damage. If you just have like 100 AD at level 5, and then you bounce off of this with the 60 damage on top of that, you're going to crit somebody for like 320. So it's going to be like half of their health bar. So that's why she does so much damage in the early game off of that. So this is a really, really good harassment tool to push people in and bounce this off of minions to people on the tower. And it's got a pretty good bounce. So you can shoot it up to 650 and it can bounce up to 500. And it's got a 160 degree arc on it. So that's almost the full 180 degrees around a minion. So that's why it can look like a trick shot where they fire it and it looks like it bounces almost like an L and hits somebody. If you get really good on Miss Fortune, you can learn how to trick people into taking the bounces like that. But yeah, you want to be bouncing these off of minions, particularly minions that are about to die if you can. But really, any minion, just hitting these is pretty good. But yeah, if you get the one off the minion that dies, it's going to hit like a truck. So this has a lot of scaling with both raw AD, both of these do, and they scale really high with crit because both of them can crit. This 100% can crit, and I'm like 90% sure that this bonus damage can crit as well. Because it says it's on the attack. That the attack itself does the physical damage, not on hit. Okay, Strut. Now, this is another really good ability. Miss Fortune gains 25 bonus movement speed if she hasn't taken damage in the last 5 seconds. This bonus is increased to a greater amount after another 5 seconds. So she starts off with 25 and then goes more. Now, when she activates it, she gains bonus attack speed for 4 seconds, and Strut's passive comes to full power. And then every time you make a new target with love tap, it lowers the cooldown on strut. So in combat, if you're like in a team fight, if you're hitting multiple people, then you can get strut's cooldown down a lot. Now this was the corner piece to a build that people were doing probably about half a year ago, maybe 6 months, where people were actually going Blade of the Ruined King early with Miss Fortune, with Press the Attack. That was before they buffed some stuff about crit. But this was one of the main reasons, is that she got a whole lot of attack speed off of this. And she could really run people down. So this is really, really nice for rotations. Gives you really good back timings so that you don't have to take teleport. I mean, in the pro scene, this is even more important. Sometimes they take teleport still. But that means that you can't quite match enemy teleports, but it's pretty close. So you can afford to take things like Cleanse is really popular on her, and the support would take Heal. But in solo queue, you usually want to take Heal. But like if the enemy person, and this is not going to matter except for in really high level play, but if they take Teleport, you can run back to lane really fast and still have an extra combat summoner, so you don't have to take Teleport. But what is what is relevant though, is that you're going to be back there faster, and you can rotate really quickly. So you push in the lane, you can rotate, go into the jungle, get some deeper vision. You can rotate over to mid lane to try to make a play. You can go grab Scuttle really quick and make a play. So just the fact that you basically get to zip around the map for free with like basically free little mini mobility boots. So that's very, very strong. And then on top of that, you also get all of this bonus attack speed as well in combat. So she's not the greatest auto attacker out there, but with that kind of extra bonus attack speed, you certainly can put down some pretty serious attacks there. The Q also resets your auto attack timer, I believe, or you can use it while your auto attack's in the air. So what you want to do with this typically is you auto attack and then you cast double up and then you auto attack again, and it's going to trigger press the attack, which we're going to talk about. But you don't really, I mean, if you're harassing, you know, you can use your Q to harass, but if you're just walking up and trying to all-in somebody, you want to auto attack first and then double up so that you get a second auto attack in there, basically, with the double up. So don't just walk up and press Q, because you're wasting an auto attack animation if you do that. So you want to auto Q auto. Okay. So yeah, that's a strong ability. Make it rain. Now this is one that really goes underappreciated a lot unless you play with or against Miss Fortunes. But having a point click slow that cannot miss, that has a 40% slow on it, is really, really good. Particularly if you have skill shot support. So if you have something like a Nautilus on your team, or a Leona, or a Thresh, those are all super popular right now. If you land that slow, it's going to make it almost impossible for them to dodge any hooks unless they have a flash or a dash. So if you put this on like a Caitlyn or a Jinx or an Ashe or something, for example, then they're not getting out of there. So your support can land their stuff, but then you can also bullet time this. So if someone, if you think you're going to be able to kill them, then you can just, you know, press Make It Rain on the Caitlyn, for example, and then just bullet time, and you'll kill them. Unless she puts a trap on you like immediately, whenever you start it, you're probably going to be able to kill them. So that's really, really strong. It's great for your team. It's AoE. It's awesome in team fights. It really makes it difficult for the enemy to move around and be where they want to be. The damage is actually quite good early on, too. 80 damage if they stay in the whole thing. It's unlikely they're going to stay in the whole thing, but the big thing is the point click slow that can't miss, that's AoE, and has not the most insane radius ever, but it's okay at 200. But at 1,000 range, that's really, really good. That's a long ways away. You can cast this on people, so that's really handy. And then her ult, this is sort of the defining thing of Miss Fortune. She does an insane amount of damage with this ultimate if somebody stands in it. It's 900% of your total AD. So if you just have 100 AD by the time you're level 6, this does 900 AoE damage if you get the full 3-second channel off on somebody. So it's one of the highest basic damage abilities in the game. Maybe Fiddlesticks is higher. I don't know. Like, I don't know the exact math on it, but it's certainly really, really far up there. So this does insanely high base damage, and it also does really, really high scaling because it's percentage based. So if you just have 200 AD, which is pretty easy to get to, it's like once you complete your Essence Reaver and get another BF sword, it's probably going to be 200 AD. Now remember, this is total attack damage, not bonus attack damage. This includes your base attack damage. Then that would be 1800 damage. So if you get like an Essence Reaver and a BF, if you get to level 11 with that, it's 2100 damage total. So that's just disgusting. And each wave can critically strike. Now, there's a limit on that, though. It's only 20%, and if you have Infinity Edge, 25%. That's still a lot. That's 10% more damage, effectively, if you have 50% crit. Because if this is going to do, like, 2,000 damage, you have 50% crit. That means you would do 1,000 crit damage, but then it only does 25% total of that. So that'd be 250 crit off of that. So it's about 10%, maybe a little bit more, maybe like 10 to 15% of the bonus damage. But nevertheless, it does apply. Crit does apply to her, or does apply to this. So, so that's really, really good. Now, so all of this put together, why does this make Miss Fortune really strong right now in the meta? Why is everybody playing her? Well, she's really, really good at early game harassment. She has awesome base damage on her spells. I mean, that right there, you know, the 900 without even really having to have many items is so strong. The double up damage, just doing like insane damage off of almost no items, is really strong. You get a lot of bonus damage off of love taps too. So she does a lot of early game damage. She has excellent harassment with her double up. She has excellent utility with her strut, being able to rotate around the map, slow people down, point click, make it rain. It's kind of hard to gank her with a lot of junglers because she just makes it rain and then just struts and runs off. So she's pretty difficult to get a hold of in the early game. And then in the mid game, when she gets bullet time, she's just one of the queens of team fight. If your team has anything that can lock people down, she's just going to completely delete them with bullet time. So excellent with Leona, Nautilus. I don't think Zack's super popular right now, but just anything that's going to be able to CC people is going to be very, very strong with her. So awesome early game, awesome mid game with the bullet time, and then even in the late game, you know, bullet time scales super well because it always scales with your AD, so that's going to be great. But then just if she has to auto attack a lot, it's pretty decent because you can auto attack once, double up, potentially crit them with the double up, and then auto attack them one more time. You're going to trigger press the attack, and then you can strut and get a ton of extra bonus attack speed. You can kite really well with the extra movement speed. So she just has a lot of raw power. Now, she's not going to be as strong at just taking down like mega tanks as some of the other AD carries out there, but like that bonus attack speed is really, really strong for 4 seconds there. So she may not be able to match like Kaisa or Vayne or Jinx at killing like a 5-item Maokai or something, but you know, most relatively squishy champs she's gonna be really good at. And games are ending really quickly right now. You know, in solo queue, I feel like most games are probably about 25 minutes. So you need somebody who's going to be really strong with no items and then 1 item and 2 item. A lot of times you're not going to be completing 3 items. You might, but it's almost never going to be up to 4 and more items. So if we look at like some of the recent games here on u.gg, you'll see that was one game where they actually completed all of them. But in a lot of games, you're just going to see like Essence Reaver, Infinity Edge, and maybe a Zeal item, you know, depending on how long the game's going on. But as you flip down, it's just Essence Reaver, okay, game's over, Essence Reaver IE, game's over, Essence Reaver, IE, BF Sword, Essence IE, Essence IE, Essence IE. So that's what you're seeing it pretty much all the time. And she's really, really strong with that. Off of just that 1 and 2 item power spike. Because she has really strong AD ratios, like we said before, on her double up, her Q, her passive, and her ultimate all have really strong AD ratios, and she scales super well with crit because 3 of her abilities scale with crit really well, right? So you've got her her ultimate, her Q, and her passive all scale with crit. So that's really what makes her good. Because right now, you know, in the meta, like I said, 25-minute games, it's really important to get dragons, get those dragons stacking, to try to push up, get those plates, get priority, try to get scuttles. There are so many team fights going on right now because you have the opportunity to fight over 2 rifts. Dragons are up much faster. It's really important to get that dragon soul if you can. And there's just a lot of like hard engaged tanks, especially in the support role, that really love to team fight. So that's just kind of where we are right now. I feel like there are some split pushers out there. There still are some assassins and some skirmishers, but team fighting is definitely coming back into play, and she's going to be one of the best ones at it. So her overall strengths, she has excellent ability damage, great AD scaling, excellent team fighter, really good rotations with that speed. Some of her weaknesses are she can be vulnerable to CC. So if they have Leona or Nautilus or whatever, it's possible that, you know, if they get a hold of you, it can be a problem. You can reposition really quickly with Strut and make it rain to get away from flank. So she's not the easiest person in the world to get a hold of, but she doesn't have any dashes. So if someone does manage to get a flank on her, if they can get through the make it rain or they flash through it or whatever, then she is going to be somewhat vulnerable in that sense. So you got to be a little careful with that. She is fairly weak against tanks. Once again, not the worst in the world, because she does have she is getting crit. She does have a big attack speed steroid, but she doesn't have any percentage damage. Doesn't have any true damage, and you know, her base attack speed I don't think is like super high. It's okay. It's pretty good. 0.65 is actually pretty good. But there will be, you know, champions that can deal with some of the mega tanks better than her. And then she has mediocre dueling. So if you're really fed, you can pretty much 3-shot somebody, just auto attack, Q auto attack, trigger press the attack, and they're just dead. But, you know, if somebody just rolls up to you like a 3-item Vayne versus 3-item Miss Fortune, the Vayne, unless the Miss Fortune, I mean, it's tough. They might be able to outplay you. I mean, you do have the double up for the extra damage, but I feel like her dueling is just not quite as strong as like someone like Kaisa or some of these other champions out there. So she's okay. Now, you will notice that in the Kespa Cup, people have been picking Varus specifically to counter her a lot, and he has been winning a lot versus her. Now, Varus is kind of weird too. You know, this video isn't about Varus. Check out my ADC tier list that I release every patch to know a little bit more. I'm going to research this, but I think the reason that people are picking Varus against her and that she's doing so well is because she is vulnerable to that CC that I mentioned before. So if Varus ults her and then the Nautilus or the Leona ults her, she's probably dead. And then he's also really good at team fights because he has that ultimate that not only hits one person but can spread and hit multiple people over time. So I think that's primarily why Varus is pretty strong against her. And then he has pretty good damage with his ult as well. But I think his win rate, like in solo queue, where stuff's a little bit more chaotic, is going to be a bit weaker. Yeah, he's at 48%. So that's kind of like a pro thing, I think, that's a little bit better, whereas Miss Fortune's going to be a lot more stable in solo queue. Okay, so let's talk about runes for a little bit here. So, press the attack. This is the most common one. Press the attack, overheal, bloodline, coup de grace, footwear, and biscuits. So, press the attack has become sort of a go-to rune on her. For a while there, people were trying Arcane Comet, but then a lot of these things in the sorcery tree got nerfed over time. So, like, Celerity got nerfed, Absolute Focus got nerfed. Gathering Storm is just kind of too slow for this meta. Like, you don't really start getting a ton of value out of that until 30 minutes. You get some pretty good value at 20, but it's really 30 where that comes online. And games are just over by then. It's all about that early game. Mana Flow Ban is good. But this build is just really kind of fallen out of favor. Even though it seems like Arcane Comet Poke would be pretty good, PTA is just so useful overall, and you can trigger this pretty quickly with just an auto attack, Q auto attack, because remember, your Q does apply on hit effect, so it will apply the press the attack. And this is just a good utility ability too. It does add in some nice burst, the 40 to 180 burst damage, but then it also, the enemy takes an extra 8 to 12% total damage. So this does help you out with tanks. It's nice to have one person on your team that has press the attack, just in case you do run into those super tanks. And if you can, you know, auto, Q, auto, and then E to slow them down, and then run away with Strut, then you might be able to get enough space for you to also channel your ult, and they'll take an extra 12% off of your ult as well. So, it's pretty solid. You could even get some decent trades in there with just an auto, Q, auto, and then Strut and run away, with the press the attack. So good early game pressure, and does give you a little bit more utility against tanks later. Now Overheal and Bloodline are popular. The reason why people go Bloodline is that like attack speed's not insane on her. It's okay, but you're mostly a burst caster with this build. A lot of times you max Q is what people are doing lately, and then you get your W second. But you're not going to get any lifesteal in your kit other than if you get a Doran's Blade or two. So having the extra Bloodline lifesteal is nice. Now don't forget that your Q also does apply lifesteal, and so does your passive. Both of these are going to apply lifesteal because they do physical damage. And it says that this applies all on hit effects. So that's a really nice way to start lifestealing back up as well once you get that Bloodline. And Overheal, some people do go Triumph. I think the Overheal is mostly because you can stack up with your Q in the laning phase. You can stack up that Alacrity or the Bloodline pretty well. And then Coup de Grace is pretty much what you always get on everybody. It just does extra damage against low targets. Now, the secondary that most people are going is going to be footwear and biscuits. Now, this was the standard for a long time with people, but, you know, they did nerf footwear, they did nerf biscuits. But Miss Fortune is one of the best people with this still, because she's already really fast. You know, with her W, she can get back to lane really quickly. She doesn't need to invest in the boots as early as some of the other champions out there, so... you know, she's not going to be hurting for that movement speed. So that makes the magical footwear really good, saves you money on boots, saves that 300 gold. And then the biscuit delivery just gives you a little bit more sustain in the lane as well. I have seen like Double Lift and a couple other people sometimes take things like Gathering Storm and Mana Flow Band or Gathering Storm and Absolute Focus. That's okay, but once again, Gathering Storm is a little bit slow. You could also take... I guess, like, maybe some combination of these runes. I don't see that many people doing it, but, like, you could do something like Taste of Blood for some sustain and, like, Ulti Hunter or Relentless Hunter. But I just don't see that very much. The vast majority of people are just going Boots Biscuit. And I think that's probably the best, just because Boots give you such a great value. Okay, so let's talk about items a little bit. That's pretty standard. That's what basically everybody's doing. Like 58% of people are doing that. You can do Conquer, but I think that takes a little too long to stack up. I think PTA is just going to be a bit stronger most of the time. So that's what like the U.GG people are doing, and then I think a lot of the pro players, pretty much everybody on Miss Fortune was also going for that same rune setup. Yeah, pretty much PTA inspiration all around. Okay, let's talk about items a little bit. So, these days, what everybody's getting on her is Essence Reaver, Rush. There's a few reasons for this. I went ahead, and I got Essence Reaver over here for you. The big deal is, like, this is one of the most efficient items out there. They did nerf it a little bit. It used to be 118% efficient, but then they made it cost 100 extra gold, so that knocked it down a little bit. But it's still a super efficient item. It's 115% baseline, and that doesn't include the extra mana that you get. Even if it doesn't have this, it would still be a strong item. Gives you the 70 attack damage, so big attack damage and crit. That's exactly what you want. And then the 20% cooldown is really nice. Obviously, you have a huge impact ult. That's good. But then also just having things like your strut and your Q off cooldown more often is a big deal. So this is one of the most efficient offensive AD items in the game. And so that's why you get it. By comparison, if you want to look at a couple of other items, Infinity Edge, early on, without this extra critical damage here, is only 106% efficient. So you are getting, you know, a little bit more damage off of your crits there, but you only have 25% crit chance to begin with Infinity Edge. So it is good, but it's decidedly like going to be less efficient than Essence Reaver a lot of the time. If you have a champion that has really good cooldowns like Miss Fortune. Other ability like Storm Razor here is only 97% efficient. Now you do the extra, you know, 120 on damage hit when you go up, so it's hard to quantify that. That is going to be pretty solid, but it's really low attack damage and attack speed. You really don't want attack speed on her in your first couple of items because most of your damage comes from your abilities, right? It comes from your Q, it comes from your ult. a lot of the times, and you're looking for that burst, right? You're looking for the flat AD. So attack speed is not terrible, but you already get a lot of attack speed later on if you want it with your W. And I think like the flat AD and the crit is just so strong, particularly with double up, that you're really kind of wasting value here. So the fact that it has 15 less attack damage is a really big deal compared to other things. I mean, the slow is nice, this other stuff is nice, but it's a really rare item. None of the pros were, or none of the Korean pros, I guess one person tried it and got destroyed, but most people are not doing that. And then most of the pros up here are not doing it. Only 11% in sort of recent patches are getting that Storm Razor. So that's why people go Essence Reaver. It's because it's super cost efficient and you have very, very valuable cooldowns that you can take advantage of there. Also, it has a really nice build path. So the BF Sword is pretty standard on most of these big ticket items. Agility Cloak's pretty standard. But the fact that you can get Caulfields is really nice because that means you have better back timings. Because now, you know, if you back and you don't have enough for a BF Sword, you can get 2 long swords, or you can get a Caulfields, or you can get a Cloak of Agility. So that the Cloak's kind of a weird one, but usually you can get double longsword Caulfields or double longsword second Doran's Blade. So there are several different like builds you can do and adapt based on what's going on in the lane, how the tempo of the game is going. We'll talk about that more in the laning presence video here in a second. But it's a really, really friendly item in terms of back timings. Versus Infinity Edge is a lot more harsh. It still has the BF and the Cloak of Agility, but you have to have enough money for pickaxe. So if you come in with like 1,600 gold, then it's going to feel bad because you're going to get a BF sword and you're going to have like 300 gold that you can't really do anything with. Versus, you know, if you were going with Essence Reaver, then you could come in and get a BF sword and a, you know, long sword, right? Or there's just a lot more permutations of items that you can get that will feel good, versus you have to have very specific successful back timings to make Infinity Edge feel better. So that's kind of nice. Now Storm Razor kind of has that luxury too, which is why a lot of people like Storm Razor. There's a lot of reasons why most AD carries like Storm Razor right now, but Kerchai's Shard is similar, where it's got a little bit better of a back timing going on there. Okay, so that's why Essence Reaver's there. It's the most efficient one, and then you want to go Infinity Edge after that. So Infinity Edge gains a lot more value whenever you already have other crit items in your build. So when you already have Essence Reaver with the 25% crit, now that passive for the extra 25% critical damage, now that's going to be a lot stronger. So that's why most people start with Essence Reaver. It's easier to build in the early game, in the laning phase, where sometimes you may not get the perfect back timings depending on how often you're ganked, how you're CSing, the kinds of trades you're taking, that type of stuff. And then in sort of the mid to late game, you have, or I guess in the mid game, you're going to be able to pick up that Infinity Edge once you have hopefully some more preferable back timings where you're not getting pressured as much when you're just like farming in a side lane or just A-ramming mid and getting some CS or whatever. You shouldn't be doing that. You should be finding open lanes to get CS, but either way, that's useful. So these are pretty much always the first 2 items that you get. So you don't have attack speed on any of these items, but once again, you don't need the attack speed. You just want to hit like a truck with your Q and your ult. That's what you want going on. So forget the attack speed item. You don't need it for your first 2 items. After that, most people do go rapid fire cannon, and you might say, well, why not just go something like Storm Razor after that? You could, but the thing is, like, a lot of games are kind of drawing to a close, or you're like, you need a quicker item so that you're ready to fight for Baron. You need like a very efficient, fast item. So that's why a lot of times you'll get rapid fire cannon third, because this one's just going to give you a ton of power. It gives you the extra range on your first attack so that you can land a really powerful crit on somebody. I think I don't know if this extra range affects your Q or not. To give you the extra range, I'd have to play Miss Fortune to see, but I know that this is the most popular one, so it might. So you might be able to Q him from a million miles away and maybe get a crit for a lot of damage. But either way, really friendly build that you can get near the end of the game. Zeal is a great item, and it's just going to make sure that you get that long range snipe hit to do a ton of damage. It is an attack speed item, but a lot of times you're getting it just so that you do that massive burst damage from really far away. And then that's pretty much it most of the time. A lot of people don't go for another item after that. Another potential option that you could do is Phantom Dancer. You do see some people getting Phantom Dancer occasionally. I think almost everybody here did Rapid Fire Cannon. That person did Phantom Dancer. But Phantom Dancer is obviously going to give you a little bit more protection if you're going to get burst out by an assassin like a Zed or a Talon or something like that. Phantom Dancer can come in clutch. Another utility item you could get is Quicksilver Sash. That's going to be great if they have a lot of CC. So if they have a Varus they're trying to counter you with, or they have a Leona or something like that, then Quicksilver Sash can be really useful. So you might need to get that. And then GA, you do see that some. That's a little bit more rare, but you can go ahead and get the GA if you want to. The problem is GA Guardian's Angel doesn't have that much like use until you absolutely 100% complete it. That's when you get the value out of it. So that's why a lot of people don't get it, because you have to invest the entire 2,600 gold to get the value out of GA. Versus QSS, it's only 1,300 gold to get the cleanse, and then later on you can turn it into Mercurials if you're rich. But just having the raw QSS can be a little bit better. I guess you can get Stopwatch, and that does give you some value while you're building towards GA. But overall, it doesn't have a lot of value there. You could also go something like Maw Malmortius if you wanted to. If you want to get old Hex Drinker early on, you see people doing some Hex Drinker here, but I think I don't remember if Hex builds into Phantom Dancer or not. No, Phantom Dancer has its own separate thing with Lifeline. I think once you complete Maw Malmortius, then that doesn't stack. You get either Maw or you get Hex Drinker. So I think most people just do Phantom Dancer if you want the Hex Drinker type of effect, because this is going to give you crit, which goes really well obviously with Infinity Edge and Essence Reaver, and then it gives you the extra movement speed and all that stuff. So I would just probably go Phantom Dancer as your defensive item if you want one of those. Now, let me make a note here. I want to talk about Doran's Ring and Doran's Blade rather, and Doran's Blade stacking, because there are some all caps videos, you know, of like Korean pros stacking like, you know, 6 Doran's Blades or whatever. Maybe not that much, but you'll see them getting like 4 or 5 Doran's Blades, and everyone's like, oh my god, it's OP. Nobody does that, okay? Those are all caps videos. That's extremely rare to see that. What you will see are sometimes people will get a couple of Doran's Blades, maybe 2, 3 at the absolute most, but it's very risky to do that. You notice like none of these pros, for the most part, I haven't watched these games, but I'm pretty sure they did not get multiple Dorans early on. I think there was one game that I watched where someone had 2, and that seems to be the most common that I see. If you look over here and people have multiple Doran's Blades, like occasionally you see 2. Now sometimes if they're like full build, they may have started with more and sold them. It's like 2 there, 2 there, 2 there. Like, you're not seeing a lot of these people, even people who died early on in the game, or like the game was over at one item like this right here, even they're not getting like the multiple Doran's Blade. This guy has sneaky went for 3, but like most people it's like 2, and there's a reason for that. So Doran's Blade is a very efficient starting item, as most starting items are. They want to give you power early on, and they want to encourage you to get that item. So if you look at Doran's Blade, it is 135% efficient by itself, which is really good. We, you know, talked about Essence Reaver being one of the most efficient completed big items at 115%. Well, this is 135. So Doran's Blade, like stacking the Doran's Blade, is going to give you the most power you can possibly get as an AD carry early on. The problem is Doran's Blade doesn't build into anything. So, and it has a penalty on it where if you sell it, you get a lot less gold. With most items, when you sell them, I think you get like 60% of the gold back. You get a large amount of gold refunded to you. But with Doran's, they changed it a long time ago to where you get much, much less. I don't remember the exact percentage on this. I think it's like, is it 40%? I don't know exactly, but you get 180 gold back. So you're basically losing 270 gold every time you have to sell a Doran's Blade. That's almost an entire kill's worth of gold. Like a normal kill with someone that doesn't have a bounty is 300 gold. So you're basically giving up a kill's worth of gold. So it's not really going to be worth it if you get a lot of Doran's Blades, unless you are getting multiple kills, multiple towers, dragons, all kinds of stuff that's going to make that 270 gold worth the loss. Um, it is like the most notable thing about this is it does give you a lot of HP early, which is something that um, is very useful against champions like Leona, like Nautilus. It's going to be really hard to all in kill her if she has a lot of Doran's Blades. So that's probably the most useful thing. She does benefit really heavily from raw attack damage as well, as we talked about before. So that 8 attack damage is going to be really good. Now, Longsword is going to be the closest thing to it with 350 gold for its cost instead of the 450 off of Doran's, but it doesn't have lifesteal on it, and it doesn't have the health is the really big ticket. But the longswords build into things. It builds into Caulfields. So basically, if you're in an all-in lane, if you're afraid they're going to all-in, kill you, burst you out, and you really need that health, then Doran's Blade can be good, getting an extra one. But you have to spend, like, you have to pressure them. You have to get an advantage. Remember, lifesteal is also really good because her Q applies lifesteal, and Love Tap, I believe, does as well. So lifesteal is pretty good on her as well, even though you can't really itemize for that. You got it in your runes. It's good. With Overheal especially, it's going to allow you to have more Overheal shields. Is further going to protect you from all ends. So it's good to have multiple Dorans. However, you do have that penalty. But why is it 2? Why do most people, if they get multiple Dorans, and you don't have to get multiple Dorans, there are plenty of pro players that I see that do not get multiple Doran's Blades. And even, you know, like solo queue people that I play with that do not get multiple Doran's Blades. But 2 is the most efficient number. The reason for that is you don't have to sell any of your Doran's Blades for a long time, and you could make a good argument for why 2 is actually potentially even more efficient and worth slowing down your item, your big items, so slowing down your Essence Reaver a little bit. And the big reason is you're not going to be using all of your item slots in the early game because you have really expensive items that you're getting. So an item slot that's sitting there empty is doing nothing for you. When you have a little black box there, it doesn't do anything. So that's wasted potential that you could have if you had an item sitting there, right? So if you put a Doran's Blade there, then you're filling up that slot and you're doing something efficient with that blank slot that would otherwise be there. Because when you're having to save up, you've got your boots, then you've got your BF sword, your crit cloak, and your Caulfields, right? So that's just 4 items. And then you could potentially put 2 Doran's Blades there as well. Now, one drawback to this is if you're doing that, you're not going to be getting control wards, though. So it's going to give you a lot more fighting power, but you're going to have a lot less vision control. So you got to kind of weigh that out. You know, if your support's already putting down a ton of vision, you think you don't need a control ward there. You know, because there will be times where you won't be able to get a control ward. When you have the entire BF sword, when you have the Caulfields, and when you have the crit cloak, there might be, depending on your back timing, there might be a window there for like, you know, 1 or 2 minutes where you can't get a control ward. So either you donate an early control ward and put it in a place it's not going to get cleared. So you try to get it, like put a defensive one in one of your bushes where they're not going to be able to clear it, or you put it in a place where you think the enemy's not going to check. That could work. But it might hinder your vision game a little bit. And you need to be buying control wards as an AD carry. You need to always have a control ward on the map. Remember, it's not a tax. It is an investment. It makes you safe so you don't die from ganks. And it allows you to make plays. You know where the jungler is and your team can make smart decisions. So you should be getting a lot of control wards. Okay, there just might be a little window there where you're not going to have an open box if you go for multiple Doran's Blades. But, you know, when you have boots plus 2 Doran's Blades early on, that's 3 open slots. And you can go BF, Caulfield, and then Cloak, building towards Essence Reaver. Still don't have to sell a Doran's, right? You're going to not be able to get a control word there, but you don't have to sell any Doran's. And then after that, you can go BF Sword plus Pickaxe. Hi. You can... I'm going to hold on to these other 2. Yeah, that's right. That's right, Sadie. You can get a, and then after that you can get a BF sword and a pickaxe and still not sell your Doran's. Now you might, if you want to, you can sell it to get the crit cloak later, or you can just wait for the full 1250 to complete your IE and you still wouldn't have to sell Doran's. And then after that you could even get a Zeal if you wanted to wait for the whole Zeal amount and still not sell your Doran's. So at a minimum here, you know, you could go reasonably for 7,500 gold before you ever have to sell a Doran's Blade. So you could have Essence Reaver completed, Infinity Edge completed, and Tier 2 boots completed without ever having to sell your Doran's Blade and still not having like really funky back timings. The only one that's a little funky is holding out for 1250 to complete IE when you have BF Sword plus Pickaxe in your inventory. So that's actually pretty good because that means you're not going to be selling those Dorans until like probably 25 minutes into the game, depending on how rich you get. So then you're not losing any efficiency. You're actually being more efficient for most of that time because you're using that empty slot. So that's the reason why a lot of people go 2 Dorans, is you're making early use of that empty, black box that you're going to have so that you're going to be a lot more powerful. So I think that's it. Versus if you go like 3 Dorans, you're going to have to sell something early, or you're just not going to be able to buy your pickaxe after your BF, or you're not going to be able to buy Crit Cloak, and you're going to have to just sit there with like a BF and a Caulfields, which that can get really awkward and really weird, and it's going to make it even harder to get control wards. So I think getting 3 or more is probably a mistake, not to mention you're losing 270 per Doran's Blade. So I think 2 is enough to establish extra dominance early and to be efficient with your slots, and then you're not losing money until much later in the game when it probably matters a little bit less. When you already have your 2 big ticket items, then you're going to lose a little bit of money. So that's what I would recommend. However, once again, you don't have to buy the multiple Dorans. If you're already coasting through the laning phase, if you're really far ahead, if they're not all in killing you, just forget the Dorans. If you have extra money, just get more long swords, get your Essence Reaver online earlier. But if you do want to assert that dominance, if it's a close lane, if they, are running a risk of all-in killing you, then maybe getting a Doran's Blade early. But I would not go more than that. Okay, let's talk about laning here really quick. I thought I had Rift Kit pulled up. Maybe not. We'll talk about how you should be managing the lane here. Okay. So as always, in solo queue, I still think that the best strat, and a lot of people will, maybe challengers will critique this, but for the vast majority of solo queue players, the best strategy you can possibly do is push in, pressure, don't die to ganks. That's pretty much it. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Now, it's going to depend a little bit on your comp, like their comp, where their jungler is, so you don't want to do this blindly all the time. But the main reason that you want to try to push them in and position yourself like this is, number one, they're going to be missing CS to the tower. You're going to be able to harass them with your Qs. Your support's probably going to be able to harass them if they're a ranged support. If they're an all-in support, we'll talk about that here in a second. But once you do that, they're missing CS at the tower. But the big important thing is that allows you to rotate, and you rotate so well as Miss Fortune because you're so fast off of your strut, right, that you can just run right up this river really quickly and make a play on mid. Just sometimes just dropping that E in there, right? Like if they're in a, if they're about to fight here, they're pushed up, and you just roll up and drop that E on them. Sometimes that's enough, right? Syndra's going to be able to hit her stun. Orianna's going to hit her ult. Diana's going to hit her ult. Like just dropping that E there, and then obviously walking up and, Q auto is good too. But she's actually pretty good at ganking because that E slow is brutal, and then you have pretty nice burst with the Q auto, and being able to trigger that press the attack means your mid laner is going to do even more damage as well. So she's really good on the roam early. If you just push up, roam over here, you can also go in, drop your control ward. This is a great spot to put a control ward these days. A lot of people still aren't used to that. They aren't used to checking that, but that's a really good place where a lot of people just won't look in the early game. So you could get your control ward there. You can clear out this blast plant. You could try to get the scuttle here. If your jungler's down on the bottom side, their jungler's like top side ganking or whatever, like their jungler's up there, your jungler's down here doing raptors, you have priority. You see that up there, then you can just ping your jungler, get priority, and get over here and get this dragon really quickly too. So take advantage of that move speed, try to pressure. Try to go see what you can get on the map. So that's why I think that pushing up and pressuring is good. Now, if you do have an all-in support like a Nautilus or something like that, and they're looking to get a hook, then, you might want to wait and just see, like, maybe not push up all the way and see if they can get a hard engage here, and then you go for the kill. because if you're always pushing them in a tower, then the Nautilus is not going to be able to do anything. However, keep in mind that y'all can gank as a unit too. So you can ping for the Nautilus to come up here, and then you can come up here, and y'all can gank middle too. If you gank middle and get a kill, that will tilt them like super hard too a lot of times. If you do that like twice, a lot of mid laners will just AFK out of the game. But now if you get both of those pushed in with your support, you could come over here, apply pressure middle. You can cover for your support while your support just wards everything up in their jungle. So your support can just kind of roll through, drop a ward here, you know, maybe drop one right here. And if you have a ton of priority, you could even drop one up here. But yeah, if you have your pink here and then you're covering for your support, or your support goes in and just lights up their jungle, I mean, you're going to completely dominate because your jungler is going to know exactly where they are. You could go on a little, like, kill mission with your jungler. You know, if you know, like, you have all those wards up from earlier and you see their jungler's, like, over here, you know, y'all could just come in here, hang out, and then he comes down to get his blue. Y'all just jump on him. Now all of a sudden he's tilted. He AFK's out of the game. So there's just a lot of stuff you can do. So I think sometimes, you know, it's appropriate to try to hold the lane in the middle and just say, like, okay, you know, I have a Nautilus support. We want to try to kill him, so I'm just going to try to hold the lane right here, even. It's just so I can look for those engages. But I think sometimes it's easy to be a little short-sighted with that and just think, you know, only about your lane. Like, oh, okay, I just want to, like, you know, come in here and just threaten them. Now, if you're zoning them completely off of the wave, if you're really far ahead and they're, like, up here or something, and you're just not even letting them get close to the wave, that's a good reason to do that, to hold it in the middle. But if you're not zoning them, if you're just sitting there, you know, just farming off here, right? If you're just sitting here farming and your support's just, like, not really landing hooks, or if you don't have a lot of kill pressure, just push it in, you know? Just get them in there and go find something else to do on the map. I think that trying to create a good freeze and have wave management like that is really difficult for a lot of people to do properly, and it requires a lot of coordination with your team to leverage properly. So, you know, if you're like, you know, in pro, you'll see like setting up a slow push here so that it's going to crash, and you can, you know, talk to on your comms to your jungler and say, okay, it's going to crash in 30 seconds. Come down here. Let's do this. And then you come up and, you know, because everybody's a pro, you know, they're going to have like vision over here, and they're going to have like, you know, pink here, pink here, pink here, pink here. You know, just crazy crap like that, and then it's going to have, like, the jungler is going to set up and come in here off of your slow push. You've been setting up for a minute here, and then when it crashes into the tower, you're going to come in, you know, your mid laner is going to TP over here on top of something, and you're just going to, like, you know, blow them up. Like, yeah, some challengers might talk about that kind of stuff, but that's really not realistic for most people in solo queue. Like, it's much, much easier just to, you know, like I said, just come in and, just push them up, put them in the tower, they're going to miss CS, and then go do something else on the map. Roam middle, get vision, roam jungle, all of that. Especially because, once again, it's really going to hurt the mental of the enemy team. You know, mid laner is going to AFK, or the jungler is going to AFK if you gank them a couple of times. So, that's how I would run the lane. But yeah, just really take advantage of that movement speed. Also, if you have them pushed in like that, you get a really preferable back timing so that you can go back and get like your Caulfields or your BF and then run back to lane. And then you're there first because you're faster than they are most of the time. Then you can do it again, push them in. Ping your jungler too. Like, if you get a good back timing in here and they stay and like farm this wave under tower and you just like got your BF sword or whatever and the jungler's like down here doing red, just like ping dragon. You know, just ping it like a million times. Just ping that, you know, these guys are missing. They're done. And just ping that you want to do dragon. And then just run over here. And just run, like, straight to dragon before they even get back. Because then they're going to be up here because they're slower than Miss Fortune. You also got the earlier back timing because you had them pushed in. So they're going to be up here when you start this dragon. And you're probably going to be able to get it. So just really leverage your early game power. You have great trading. You have awesome mobility. Push them in. Go rotate. Make some plays off of that. Okay. And I think that's going to be it for this video. Hopefully that helps you out a little bit. You know, if you're not sure about the Doran's ring timing and stuff like that, I would just say just don't even do it. Or the Doran's ring, the Doran's blade. I would just say just don't even do it. Just get your BF swords as usual. Just go for Essence Reaver, Caulfields. You know, the Doran's Ring is kind of a judgment call. You have to kind of understand what's going on with tempo, what's going on with your lane. You know, if you feel like they could kill you, you can get the Doran's Blade. Doran's Blade also becomes more attractive if there's a really strong dragon that's coming up early on, or if your jungler really wants to make a play on dragon, it's like a you know, a Vi or a Nunu or something else that takes dragon early, then a Doran's Blade is going to look a little bit more attractive because you're going to have that early game power for the early game team fight. So if you can, you know, make those decisions and make that call, then you can go ahead and get that second Doran's early on. I would not do more than 2, as I mentioned before, but that could be a good play versus, you know, if you have a Master Yi on your team or to someone who's going to be like AFK farming to 6, and the enemy team has like, you know, Ezreal, Janna, or something, and they're not going to all in and kill you, I would just go ahead and just farm up instead. But yeah, that's going to be it. Thank you very much. Once again, Nagarake, hopefully y'all enjoyed this. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments section. Come by, check out the stream around 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'd love to have you. It's very friendly, very chill. I'm happy to talk about Miss Fortune or anything else that you want out there. A really quick note I will make in the last couple of minutes here. Some people have been trying Miss Fortune support again. This video is not really about that, but in general, she's not a very good support right now. Getting the new Umbral item with lethality does help her out a little bit because that does allow her to sweep wards, but you know, the pro players that have tried to play her have not been like super successful. I guess Mickey had a game here, but he was 4-11. She's just extremely vulnerable to all-in champions like the Leona, like the Nautilus. And she's just going to get outscaled by most other champs. So if you want an AD, like damage-dealing champion, I'd recommend Senna or something like Pyke. I just think they have better kits. You know, the point-click E is nice. Yes, Miss Fortune was a good instrumental support like 3 years ago in the what was it? I can't even remember the name. Was it SKT versus the Tigers? I don't remember if they were Coup Tigers or what, but it was used specifically in that series to counter Zyra, and it was used with Ashe so that you had that slow, that point-click slow where Ashe could hit her ult. So it was very, very specific, and it was just a very different game back then. And Black Cleaver was way stronger. It was like super good on Miss Fortune back then. But the itemization is just not as good. Like right now, what makes her really strong is like the crit build because of how that interacts with her passive and her Q. So you need the big damage, you need the big items. You're just not going to have that otherwise. She's going to have a pretty good laning phase because her E has decent base damage, and if you take Comet, you have decent poke. But I just think that something like Zyra or just another more traditional poke mage is just going to be a lot more effective because it doesn't require as much gold and is going to contribute a lot more to team fights. One thing that Miss Fortune support used to be able to do in team fights is that Black Cleaver shred. You'd shred the entire team with Black Cleaver, but it used to have more AD on it and it had less HP. So it was a lot stronger on AD carries. That was back when Lucian used to get that item too. So it was a very different meta. You can try it, but I don't recommend it. I think there are going to be better choices as support. But I figured I'd just chip that in there real quick because I know I get asked on stream every now and then, what about Miss Fortune support? Do you think it's good or not? I mean, maybe against Zyra, you know, maybe you could try it. Lehen's picked it specifically against Zyra here, but, you know, once again, in general, I think it's going to be a little on the weak side. But anyways, that's going to be it. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to donate for a guide of your choice, just email me at thestrategyprofessor@gmail.com. Let me know what you have in mind. Check out the rest of the content on the channel, the stream, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I do tier lists every patch, coaching sessions, other champion guides, other topical guides, just tons and tons of new stuff coming out every day. So be sure to check it out. That's going to be it. Have a good day. See you next time.